After the death of Chinggis Khan, perhaps the greatest military leader and organizer in all of human history, the nation he had led on a meteoric rise through the first half of the 13th century was left to his son Ogedei, a man he thought would command the respect of his people. Ogedei went on to reign for 2 decades, over which the borders of the Mongol nation expanded further and further against the Chinese, the Muslim nations of the Middle East, and the Christian occupants of Russia. This last campaign was directed in the interest of Batu, grandson of Chinggis Khan. Over 100,000 Mongol and Turkic warriors careened into the Russian steppe, conquering with ease, and in the winter to boot. Over the next few years, the Mongol war machine devastated Hungary and made subservient peoples out of the great Cuman nation. It seemed they had no superior opposition, and would have surely made it to the shores of the Atlantic if not for the untimely demise of Ogedei. At the time of his death, the Mongol Empire reached the limit of its westward expansion. To Europeans, it would have seemed as if God had personally intervened and saved the devout Christians from the invading heathens, a true deus ex machina. This process of electing a new great Khan would take many years, in which the threat of Muslim invasion into Europe grew more imminent. Pope Innocent IV and the great European powers hoped for a more successful crusade against these Saracens, and although they were appalled at Batu's conquest and slaughter of Christian lands and people, they saw a potential ally in the Mongols against the Muslim nations. Pope Innocent called an ecclesiastical council in 1245 at Lyons on the subject of the threat of the Mongol people and ordered missionaries to deliver his message to the Mongol Great Khan, whoever that may be. This letter, carried by John de Plano Carpini, reproached the Mongols for their massacres against Christian peoples and threatened the full wrath of God if they should decide to continue. It also suggested that the Great Khan should be baptized and submit to prayer in the Christian tradition. John de Plano Carpini rode thousands of miles to Mongolia to witness the elevation of Guyuk to the title of Great Khan and delivered the letter to the Khan himself. The letter, originally written in Latin, was translated into Persian and then into Mongol. This may have resulted in some misunderstanding on the behalf of Guyuk, for he misinterpreted it as a letter of submission by the Pope and rulers of the Western world to the one Great Khan. Whatever he thought of the letter, he certainly deemed it worthy of a reply. His response is my all-time personal favorite historical document, and is the source which I have chosen for my project. Guyuk's reply was translated into Latin by scribes and the missionaries themselves, but another copy was also given to the papal envoys, written in Persian. The Persian version survives in the archives of the Vatican and was translated into the document I chose. This version, although translated across many languages, is still quite cohesive and extremely powerful. Guyuk opens the letter by bidding the Pope and the rulers of Europe, his perceived subjects, to come pay homage to him at the Mongol court, and to receive his commands then. He follows by refusing the offer of baptism and prayer, and then launches into a shocking retort to the Pope's accusation that the Mongols had been acting against the will of God by invading Russia. He states that thanks to the power of the everlasting heaven, all lands have been given to the Mongols from sunrise to sunset, and asks rhetorically how anyone could have done this without the mandate of heaven. He again turns the Pope's reasoning on its head when he addresses the accusations of slaughter by inquiring again how anyone could kill or seize power contrary to the command of God. Finally, in one last reversal of the Pope's doctrine against himself, Guyuk threatens that if Innocent and the Christian rulers dare disobey, God alone knows what will befall them. It is clear from these statements that the Mongols had a deeply seated belief that they alone received the mandate of heaven, and that they alone were destined to all lands under the eternal blue sky. The letter struck fear in the Western world, and as John carried this reply back across the vast expanse of Asia, he assumed this to be a call to war for all of Europe. This document provides great insight into the culture and customs of the Mongol people and perfectly encapsulates their disposition and beliefs. It is perhaps the greatest threat ever delivered, and it reinforces our perception of the Mongol people as being believers of a universal monotheistic deity, referred to as God, Allah, Tengri, or any other moniker implying eternal and universal ruler. That being said, the letter provides evidence of a continuation of the legacy of nations throughout history, using religious justifications for the conquest of lands and people. The Mongols were an important facet of medieval history, and this letter to Pope Innocent IV should not have been left out.